Hey everybody, so I just wanted to talk briefly about a subject, which is how to make Hema more mainstream, or how to make it popular, really is the question. And I thought of this because I saw it addressed in another video. The video recommended that we take kind of like an MMA approach of the UFC 1 or 2, where they're doing style versus style. And that exists already on YouTube, and a lot of those videos are super popular and they're really cool. But I think Hema has a lot more to offer than that. So part of it is that compared to other martial arts, Hema has a lot to offer in terms of safety. If you sign your kid up for like Taekwondo, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, there's a high level of risk associated with that. And it's not just about like concussions, but also in Jiu-Jitsu, wrestling, right? I got more injured in Jiu-Jitsu and wrestling than I ever did in Muay Thai, maybe excluding some of the headshots that I took for sure. But that's one thing to keep in mind. In Hema, with the modern protective gear that we have, it's just gone up and skyrocketed, and we can have really, really safe fights they actually feel like real fights that you're having, right? It's a lot of times close to 100% in the effort that you're doing. But as long as we wear the specific safety gear, and we also take into consideration what an acceptable touch is. So you see higher rates of injuries in the ones where they expect a certain amount of rotation in the cut, not necessarily with a sharp sword, or where you're expected, hey, if I hit you in the arm, I actually have to move your arm with the force of the blow. You see a ton of like broken fingers and stuff like that. A lot of tournaments, and hey, I give Hema a lot of credit, a lot of tournaments have totally changed that. And you're seeing like a big reduction in injuries nowadays. People are kind of tired of that, right? Because we know that we can have a really safe sport. And if you take a look at sport fencing as the example of that, what does sport fencing have that other combat sports don't? It's that it's as safe as badminton. It actually has less injuries, less deaths than badminton has. And so that's uncomparable. When we're talking about people putting their kids in like football, hockey, things that are considered fairly safe, but a little bit, edgy, fencing is way safer than that, and historical fencing is way safer than that. So that's one thing that I think we can push on people, especially if we open it up. And this is the second point, is I think fencing and Hema are really, really good family sports. And I don't think that's talked about. I don't think that's addressed. Right now, there's kind of that stereotype in Hema where it's two pretty big guys that are bashing each other with long swords. That's kind of the image, all dressed in black, bashing each other with long swords, hitting pretty hard. And it's a more martial version of fencing, right? Totally not necessary. You can absolutely have women's categories, and we see women are really, really doing good as Hema athletes. There's some of the great athletes that we have, right? But also I think for kids and for youth fencers, there's a huge opportunity to do something really cool, traditional, that's much lower risk than like karate, taekwondo, any of those things that you're putting it in. And a lot of times that's what they want to get into anyway, because they saw a lot of swords on movies, or they saw martial arts movies where a lot of weapons were used. And those are some of the cool things. You see a lot of the kids that go into like taekwondo or karate, they actually really, really, really want to use some of the weapons that are on the walls that are there, or kung fu, right? They definitely want to use some of the weapons that are there. And we have that. That's what we're all about. And I think we have that to offer. So the other thing that I briefly mentioned is we really got to push that cultural connection. So you kind of see that at like the Highland gatherings and Highland games that we've been participating in, is everybody's walking around there with broadswords, dirks, skeen doos in their boots, right? And you can buy a claymore at the stands, and you could for so long, even if it's like a touristy claymore, you can buy them while you're there. And so they all know that this was a big part of the Highland gatherings and games. And it's a big part of the culture. You go to Scotland and they've got castles everywhere, and they're filled with all of these military exhibitions. It's a big part of the culture. But fencing has kind of fallen out of the Highland gatherings and Highland games, whereas before it was a huge part of that. And so I think bringing back that cultural connection is really, we've really found our place in that. It's a really good niche. So I think with those elements, really pushing safety, because it is really, really safe. And I think even bad Hema is relatively safe compared to most martial arts. And we know that. Making it family accessible, because it totally can be. And we have the gear, we have plastic swords, nylon swords, we have foam swords for kids. You can even make like a two-handed sword for them, spears for them, shields for them. They have all of this equipment developed already for like HMB or Buhurt. And it's really easy to make those things for Hema too, or even for sport fencing. They have sport swords that you can buy that are made out of foam for little kids. really easy to transfer that stuff over. And then the final element was the cultural element, which I think we really got to start pushing as well, because it's there. It's super cool for people. And I think those three things will definitely make HEMA more mainstream, especially when they realize that, hey, we're learning a real martial art. We're learning all of these skills here. We're learning a combat sport where we can compete in, have leagues, have kind of circuits going between different clubs. I think it has a ton to offer in terms of health, in terms of fitness, in terms of community, and just in terms of people living the life that they really want to, doing something that they've always hoped that they could do, you know, become a swordsman or a sword master, right? That's the goal for a lot of people who grew up on these types of movies, whether it's like fantasy or historical movies. That's a big part of the story. So with all of those things combined, I think that we could definitely push HEMA into becoming mainstream. And I don't think it has to take like an MMA type path. I don't think that's our path forward. I don't think it's like that. I don't think it's a good comparison. I'm somebody who loves MMA. I love kickboxing, Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu, everything. I've done them for many years, right? But I don't think that's a path forward for us, because we have something really special and really cool to offer. So that's just my opinion. Some of you will agree with me, some of you won't. That's cool. There's space for all of us, but I really think this could help a lot. So thank you for watching.